Open your feed right now and count the AI model names. GPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok, DeepSeek, and a new one by lunch. It feels like a race you're already losing. So here's the uncomfortable thing I'll say up front. You don't need to know every AI model. This isn't a tour of all of them. It's a filter. By the end, you'll have 2 or 3 models matched to the work you actually do, and a 3-question test for ignoring the rest. Let's start with why it feels impossible. Why it feels impossible. Start with a number that should make you feel better, not worse. By one 2026 survey, around 7 in 10 office workers say new AI tools arrive faster than they can ever learn them. Read that again, because it reframes everything. If you feel behind, you're sitting with the comfortable majority, not falling out of some elite club that figured it all out. That feeling isn't a flaw in you. It's the predictable result of the sheer volume coming at you every single day. Here's the part that genuinely surprised me when I read it. One study found that once people were juggling more than about 3 AI tools at the same time, their productivity actually started to slip. The most frazzled users in that group made close to 40% more mistakes than their steadier colleagues. More tools didn't make them faster. Past a certain point, more tools quietly made them worse. Fewer, but mastered. That's the whole move. There's even a nickname for the feeling now, AI brain fry. And by one estimate, about a third of workers say they feel pressured to use AI they don't really understand. That last number is the quiet tragedy in all of this. A lot of people aren't adopting tools because they're genuinely useful for them. They're adopting tools to not look behind, which is a tiring and slightly hopeless way to work. So picture the average week for a freelancer or a small team marketer. A new model trends on Monday, a coworker raves about a different one on Wednesday, and by Friday there's a launch event promising the thing from Monday is already old. Nobody can hold that pace. And the honest data says trying to is the thing that's burning people out. Sit with that for a second because it flips the whole project on its head. If chasing every tool is the thing actually slowing people down, then learn all of them was never the right goal to begin with. The goal is a filter. A calm way to glance at the whole noisy landscape, decide what genuinely touches your work, and let everything else scroll past without a flicker of guilt. So before we match anything to anyone, you need the real map, and it's a lot smaller than the headlines make it look. The whole landscape is about 5 categories. There aren't 500 things to learn here. There are about 5 categories, and almost every name you've ever seen lives inside one of them. The first category is the big general assistants, the ones built to do a bit of everything. That's ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini from Google, Claude from Anthropic, and Grok from xAI. These are the 4 you hear about constantly, and for most people, the whole decision really happens inside this one box. The second category is the open and local models you can download and run yourself, like Llama, Qwen, Mistral, and DeepSeek. The pitch there is control. The model lives on your hardware, and your data never leaves your desk. The third category is the research aggregators, with Perplexity as the obvious one, built to search the live web and show you its sources instead of just talking at you. The fourth category is the generative media tools, the ones that make images, video, and music, and that's a whole universe with its own leaders for polished art, for short film-style clips, and for full songs spun out of a single sentence of description. It moves fast enough that it honestly deserves its own video. So we'll keep our focus tighter today and stay on the models you'd actually use for work. And the fifth is the newest and loudest, agents, which are supposed to go off and do tasks for you rather than simply answer a question. Now here's the detail that quietly takes the pressure off the entire decision. As of mid-2026, on one widely watched intelligence index, the top general models all sit within a few points of each other, a spread of only about 8 points across the whole leaderboard. To put real numbers on it, the leader scored around 61 on that index, and the 4th place model landed near 53. That's close enough that for everyday work, the exact ranking barely matters at all. Nobody ran away with it. There is no single best model sitting out there waiting for you to finally discover it. There's only a best one for the specific thing you happen to be doing. And which thing you're doing changes the answer far more than which model topped a chart this week. So the useful question was never, which model is the smartest in the world? It's which model fits the job in front of me right now. Let's take these 5 categories and route them to the work you actually do in a normal week. Match. A model to the job, not the leaderboard. Think honestly about what you genuinely do with AI in a normal week. For most people, it's only 3 or 4 recurring jobs, not 30. So let's map a model to each one and name what it's bad at while we're there. Because every honest recommendation comes with a limit. Shop for the job, not the trophy. Job 1 is the everyday all-rounder. The thing you reach for by default to draft an email, summarize a document, or just think out loud. ChatGPT is the safe pick here, mostly because of its enormous ecosystem and how many other tools quietly plug into it. If you only ever learn one model, this is the reasonable place to start, simply because so much of the surrounding world is built to talk to it. Its honest limit is that it no longer dominates the way it used to a year or 2 ago. It's one of several strong options now, not the obvious king of the hill, and that's exactly why just use ChatGPT for everything stopped being good advice. Job 2 is anything that lives in your documents and your inbox, or that needs to swallow a huge amount of text in one go. Gemini fits that partly because it's wired straight into Google's apps, and partly because it can hold roughly 1 million tokens of context at once. 1 million tokens is enough to drop in a small book and ask questions across the whole thing. For the person whose work lives in email and shared docs all day, that integration is the real selling point, more than any benchmark score. The catch is that holding that much in memory doesn't guarantee perfect recall of every line. So treat the giant context window as a convenience, not a miracle, and still spot check anything that matters. Job 3 is heavy coding or long document work. The contracts, the research papers, the messy code bases. Claude tends to lead here, and the gap is real but narrow. On one real-world coding benchmark, Claude and GPT both land up around 88%, trading the top spot back and forth release by release. For long documents, it holds about 200,000 tokens as standard, with 1 million token mode now in beta. So a whole contract or a stack of papers fits in one sitting. Claude's honest limit is weaker multimodal skill and no native image generation, so it's a text and code specialist, not a do-everything tool. Job 4 is the live pulse, the moments when you want to know what's being said right now, today, this hour. Grok is built for exactly that, plugged straight into the fire hose of X, with a relaxed conversational tone that feels more like a chat than a query. The trade-off is that for careful, serious analysis, plenty of people still prefer a model that pushes back a little harder. Then there's research with receipts, and that job belongs to Perplexity. It searches the live web and shows you its sources, which is a genuine relief after years of just trust me answers. Its honest limit is worth knowing though. One audit found it cites only 3 or 4 of the roughly 10 pages it actually reads. So treat it as a fast first draft of the truth, not the final word. And if your real constraint is privacy or cost, the open models are the quiet answer almost nobody mentions. Running something like DeepSeek can cost a fraction of the closed options. By one comparison, that's around 55 cents per million words of input, against roughly $15 on a top closed model, and about $2.19 on output versus something like $60. So a job that runs $100 on the expensive option can run just a few dollars on the open one. The price you pay there isn't in dollars, it's in the setup, the hardware humming on your own desk, and the usual data origin questions you'd ask of any vendor. One more thing worth saying about cost, because it quietly settles a lot of arguments. Among the big general assistants, the premium tiers have basically converged on about $20 a month, and the free tiers are genuinely useful in 2026. So for most people, the deciding factor isn't price at all. It's which model fits the job. The real question is which 2 or 3 of these actually map to your week. That shortlist is your whole filter, and everything past it is noise, which is exactly where we're going next. The noise you're allowed to ignore. Most of what you're told you have to keep up with is honestly noise for you specifically. I don't mean any of it is fake. I mean it doesn't touch the jobs on your shortlist, so reacting to it costs you real attention and hands you nothing back. Take the constant new flagship beats old flagship headlines that fill your feed. We already saw that the top models sit within a few points of each other, so a launch that moves a benchmark by a hair almost never changes which model you should open tomorrow morning. The same is true for most version bumps, the half-point updates, and the endless "we tested it so you don't have to" threads. They feel like homework, but for someone who already has a working shortlist, they're closer to weather, interesting to glance at, not something you reorganize your day around. The useful signal is whether a release does something genuinely new for a job you actually repeat, not whether it nudged a chart by a fraction. The same goes for the reflex that the newest model has to be the best one for you. Newest just means newest. It doesn't automatically mean best for your task. And that tightly bunched leaderboard is the proof sitting right in front of us. And remember that quiet finding from earlier, the one where piling on more than 3 tools made people slower instead of sharper? That finding is your permission slip. Less really is more here. Ignoring a launch isn't falling behind. For a busy person with a working short list, ignoring most launches is the disciplined move, not the lazy one. Picture someone who pauses every new headline to test the tool, rewatch the demos, and rebuild their workflow around it. They look incredibly busy and informed, and they're quietly getting less done than the person who picked 3 models in March and just kept working. None of this means you never look up again or stop learning. It means you get to glance, not lurch, every single time a new name starts trending. The trap that fools everyone. Here's the thing. The loudest noise of all is the stuff that looks completely finished but isn't. 2 culprits do most of the damage: the slick demo and the word agents. A demo is a best case, filmed on a good day, with a friendly example chosen precisely because it works. By current reporting, the tools that look flawless in a polished demo routinely stumble the moment they hit messy, real-world tasks. So a demo is a promise, not proof. And it's completely fair to wait for the proof before you rearrange your whole week around it. Agents are the sharper, more seductive version of the exact same trap. The pitch is that they don't just answer you, they go and do the work, booking the thing, filling out the form, finishing the task end to end while you sip your coffee, and the underlying capability is genuinely rising, so this part really isn't hype. But here's how I'd read the current state, honestly and without the drama. By recent reporting, their reliability is lagging well behind their capability. They can do the wrong thing confidently and fast, especially on long, multi-step jobs where one early mistake quietly poisons everything after it. Picture handing an agent a stack of invoices to reconcile while you step away for an hour. If it misreads the format on the very first one and never flags its own uncertainty, you don't get one wrong number. You get 50, all wearing the confident face of a finished job. That's the real risk. And it's not a reason to avoid agents. It's a reason to keep your hand near the wheel. One reliability benchmark even found that strong agents were bad at judging when their own answers could be trusted, which is close to the worst possible blind spot for something acting on your behalf. The calm way to hold all of this is actually pretty simple. An agent today is an intern, not an employee. It's useful, quick, occasionally brilliant, and absolutely needs you to check the work before any of it ships. Treat it like a sharp intern, and it genuinely helps you. Trust it blindly, and it will eventually embarrass you on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The trick isn't deciding whether agents are good or bad in some grand sense. It's deciding which slices of your work are low stakes enough to hand over and which ones still need a human signature before they leave the building. That line is yours to draw, and it'll move as the tools get better. For now, draw it conservatively. So how do you judge the next big thing for yourself without me sitting here narrating every launch? It turns out you only need 3 questions. The 3-question signal test. Here's the whole test. And you can run it on any launch in well under a minute. Question 1. Does this touch a job I actually repeat? If it doesn't map to your shortlist from earlier, you can stop reading right there and let it float on by. Question 2. Is the gain real for my use? Or is it just a benchmark and a demo? A model that wins a leaderboard by a sliver? or dazzles in a 30-second clip hasn't earned a minute of your time until it changes something in your actual day-to-day work. Question 3. Can I wait a month without a real cost? If nothing in your week breaks by ignoring a launch for 30 days, then a month from now the dust will have settled and the honest, hands-on reviews will finally be in. Notice what those 3 questions are quietly doing. They move the decision off the company's timeline and back onto yours. The launch wants to be urgent. The test asks whether it's urgent for you, which is a completely different question. Their clock or yours? Yours wins. Most of the time, the answer is no, and that's not you being lazy or falling behind. It's you spending attention on purpose. Let's run the whole thing on a real example. Think about the churn we've already lived through, where the first GPT-5 arrived back in 2025, then GPT jumped from version 5.2 to 5.5 inside a few months in 2026, and DeepSeek replaced its entire lineup in a single day. Run that through the test. If you use a general assistant every single day, question 1 says yes, pay a little attention. But question 2 says wait for the real-world verdict, not the launch day chart. And question 3 says nothing actually breaks if you upgrade 2 or 3 weeks late. Honestly, that's most launches in a sentence. Worth a glance, rarely worth a scramble. The version numbers are going to keep churning no matter what you do, so don't marry the number. Keep the job. What to do tomorrow morning? So, tomorrow morning? Do 3 small things while your coffee's still hot. 3 jobs. 3 models. Done. First, write down the 2 or 3 jobs you genuinely use AI for, and put 1 model next to each exactly the way we mapped them. Second, mute the rest. Unfollow a couple of the breathless launch feeds and give yourself full permission to have no opinion at all on most new names. Third, keep the 3-question test somewhere close and run it the next time a headline tries to make you panic. For most viewers, the takeaway is that you were never actually behind in the first place. You were standing in front of a fire hose and quietly blaming yourself for getting wet. The models will keep changing names and numbers, but your jobs barely change at all, and that's the part worth anchoring to. Pick the model for the job. Check the work when it matters, and let the rest of the noise wash past. The signal is the job. Almost everything else is noise you're allowed to skip. You don't need every model. You need the few that fit your work, and the calm to ignore the rest. I'm genuinely curious which way you landed on this, so tell me in the comments. Which 2 or 3 are you keeping? And what did you finally decide to mute?